Thanks for being here with us today, Robby.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to let Robby explain a little bit of his history, where he comes from, and how he got to this point. But today we want to talk about something I believe in that has helped me tremendously in the last 18 months. That I know there's probably not a lot of awareness. There's certainly good record and documentation out there of what infrared sauna does for our health and our ability to detox. But I wanted to talk to the expert himself, who developed an entrepreneur who developed a great product that I completely believe in. So thank you, Robby, for being here today, and tell the viewers and the listeners a little bit about where you came from, your story.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for having me. And we're kind of in a very unique situation now with everybody being out of their comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm happy that I have this opportunity to really kind of allow people to dial in and understand a little bit more about the things that they can do naturally to help support their immune systems and their general health platform. And so with that, my orientation, we started our company, Therasage, about 20 years ago, on the back of discovering that my oldest child, my daughter Julia, had contracted chronic Lyme disease. 20 plus years ago, Lyme wasn't well understood. Even now, with all the research and the years have gone by, certainly there have been great advancements, but there isn't a set protocol that has been handed down as to the way to manage it, because Lyme itself expresses itself in every individual a little differently. So it's a hard one. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. But that being said, we found out that my daughter had Lyme. We found and sought the most qualified Lyme literate doctor at the time. And then, having a pre-med background myself, I started to take a look at my daughter's symptoms and thought about, well, look, she goes to see her doctor once a month. Actually, our cycle was every 6 weeks. The doctor was out where we live in South Florida. The doctor was located on East Hampton, Long Island. So we would travel up every 6 weeks, get the tweak on the protocol. And then basically 99% of the time or more, we're all managing our own health care, either the individual with their health challenge and their support system, which could be their family or friends or husband, wife, significant others. So that being said, I focused on my skill sets and looked at my daughter's symptoms, and she was expressing high levels of toxicity and inflammation. I started to dive into the best methods to detox. And I discovered that there are certain frequencies of sun energy, when they're harnessed and delivered to the body, will basically mobilize all the toxins inside of you. And that happens to be the full spectrum of infrared frequencies that come from natural sunlight. So, thinking that I found the Holy Grail, what I didn't understand was it really was the beginning of my journey, because at that moment in time, 20 plus years ago, infrared technology was really just used in the health science area by sports medicine doctors to help players lower their pain thresholds, and also to improve exponentially their healing process. So it wasn't mainstream America. And I took a few months off. I went to China. I interviewed 70 factories, and I aligned myself with 2 and started developing devices for personal use to help my daughter manage her healthcare. We were doing it at home. Like many of us, manage our health challenges at home. All right. So anyway, she started getting some real results from the technology that we were using. Her practitioners, at that point, she already had 3 or 4 different practitioners helping her, and they saw real results. They asked for us to start developing some of these devices for their practices to disperse to their patients and their network. And really, that was kind of the genesis of how we started our business. So it really wasn't, it was sort of pain to passion. And it really wasn't organized with venture capital and a business plan. And, you know, as you might imagine any other business out there. But over the years, 20 plus years ago, we were really one of the first companies to bring infrared technology to mainstream. So the average consumer could buy these kinds of devices and get them into their household. The approach that I took was a little bit more scientific and a little more medical, so to speak, because what I did was develop the health sciences. We believe philosophically, Wade, that it's not just good enough to make a great device, but you also have to understand how to use it. The health science and the application is almost as important as the device itself. And so what I've done sort of as a coach and a teacher is I use the medical model. I stand in front of doctors. I get on, you know, podcasts and simulcasts and things like what we're doing today to try to help them understand the virtues, the nature, the benefits of infrared technology and how they could integrate that into their normal protocols to improve the efficacies of their practices. So what we're doing isn't instead of what the practitioner is accustomed to doing. It's along with it to improve the effectiveness of what they're doing and create a natural platform for the body to basically heal and bounce back, because our bodies are really beautiful mechanisms and they want to be well. But as you know, we're living in a very strange environment now. And when you see 14-year-old women at 8, you know, come into clinic and are showing signs of being infertile, and guys that are 18 that have low testosterone, that's not necessarily a genetic proclivity. It has a lot to do with our epigenetics, what the environment, how the environment is affecting us. And so being really sensitive to that and going through this journey internally with our family, we've created a host of different kinds of devices and applications that basically harness full spectrum infrared frequencies. In a few minutes, we can talk about some of the virtues, or at least the pillars of the foundational elements that we incorporate in all of our devices, if you choose. But for the most part, what we're trying to do is make an affordable, portable type products that devices that could be brought into everybody's household, so that they can utilize their time and, you know, and sort of become their own sort of inner practitioner. Of course, they always have their own health advisory team, but they can do it themselves. They can add in our devices at home and enhance the protocols that their practitioners are giving them. So hopefully, with all of that, they can nurse themselves back to health and live out their dreams as I believe we're supposed to be doing these days.
Well, first of all, thanks for sharing the story with your daughter and how that literally turned on a passion that you didn't necessarily realize where you were headed at the time, maybe, right? And then the business model kind of takes care of itself as you solve a problem. To me, entrepreneurship is someone who's literally solving a problem. I mean, that's the whole driving force. And versus having this concept of I need to sell something, it's more like create something of value that people need and want that solves a problem, and it sells itself. So back to this point about what you created, my discovery was through another friend and colleague, and I was aware of the benefits of IR. But at the same time, just a quick share here is I'm also an entrepreneur and in clinical practice. And as a business, we have resources that actually get limited as well. So to me, it made great sense to, as I was going through treatment holistically for what I was, my personal story in terms of what I was dealing with the last 18 months, this was perfect to apply the effectiveness and literally efficiently to the detox model that I was needing in what I was going through. And then as I backpedaled and I look at things, upstream and go backwards, I had already been doing, as I shared with you, a number of healthful, well-minded, moving, eating, thinking right. And yet my body was accumulating some toxicity that wasn't quite evident. And thank God I saw it visually in a lump on my throat, and ultimately ended up dealing with that by having a fantastic team of providers around me holistically and working through even a deeper dive that really uncovered for me as well where the system wasn't working and where we were also faulty in our linear way to look at things. So fast forward, I get a home Therasage 360 unit, and I start IR detoxification program 3 days a week aggressively, and finding benefit to support my body's own healing. So I did not do any chemotherapy. I did not do um, any radiation therapy. None of that, based on how well my body was healing at that time and what my body was going through. So number one, I wanted to say thank you for that. Two, because creating a problem that was solvable in this case was the ability to grab a home unit without having to build out another room in my basement and or somewhere in my house. So not only did you save me some time and money, you literally helped save my body and my life. So I think that's not such a small thing when people start looking at what can I do on my own at home, as you'd stated earlier, to help solve my own health problems, to take better care of my family. And do we have to actually wait till the mainstream accepts this model? Some always will. They're just going to wait until the mainstream does it. Fine. Next. How about the people that are really willing to look at what's here? So let's talk about moving forward. Let's talk about some of the science behind that just builds the foundation of why you developed this unit like you did, this Therasage 360, and how simple that is for folks to use. And they're going to have questions such as the EMF, which I love also about your unit, the very conscious position of not, I mean, because there's downsides of a lot of the units that are on the market, and you've already troubleshot some of that. And I want people to be aware how really, really forward thinking this unit is.
Thank you. Wow, boy, that's a lot. There's like a compounded question and in there. So, um, well, first off, we've got some pillars or some core concepts that we incorporate in all of our devices. To start with, this goes back 17 years plus ago. We started making traditional wooden saunas that many people see out there.
Mhm.
And with everything that we do, we have intentions, direct intentions in mind for the devices and the direction that we want it to go. But with that being said, we're very active listeners. So even though we have a certain sort of thing in mind when we put our technology together, the people out there are so smart.
Mhm.
And so when we made our wooden sauna, and remember, our technology, where my orientation is training doctors and working with chronically challenged patients, people who have health challenges that have gone from the acute stage, lasted more than a year, and then their bodies have settled into the new you, which has been defined by potentially whatever kind of health challenge that person may be having. That being said, we've oriented ourselves to work with practitioners in what we call a medical model, meaning I train the doctor, and then the doctor hopefully embraces our technology and then communicates that to the patient, or pairs our technology like you've done with other protocols to help improve your own health profile or platform. And by the way, I'm really touched and very honored to know you and meet you and understand that our technology helped you with your own journey. And really, that's our end game, to try to influence everybody out there, to show them that there is a natural, inexpensive way for you to manage your health so that you can live out and fulfill your dreams, what we call your bliss. Find your passion and really live it. So that being said, we made it. Our first saunas were traditional, and remember, we were working with chronic patients, and many of them are chemical sensitive. And so we were farming woods in Canada. We were sending them to China to be tooled, and we were bringing those saunas into the U.S. What we didn't know when we started that particular journey was that by law, each government, so Canada, when you export woods from country to country, they have to be sprayed by chemicals, DDTs, to try to kill any of the insects or bacteria from foreign countries to enter into other countries, right? So I was so smart, Wade. I actually had my woods sprayed twice, out of Canada and out of China into the US. I get this whole process going, and then I realize, like, in the middle of the game, people are going into that wooden sauna to basically get rid of their own toxins, but they're breathing in all these other toxins from the off-gassing of the chemicals that were used in the treatment of the woods. Like,
Classic.
Yeah, so I immediately disbanded that program, but we still make wooden saunas. We just aligned ourselves with a domestic company, and so our woods are farmed here. And yes, domestic saunas, wooden saunas made in the U.S. are a lot more expensive. They could be are $4,000 or $5,000. That being said, we started producing the wooden sauna, and this is what I heard. I heard, Robby, I really need that sauna, but I'm wealthy. I live in a really expensive 700 square foot apartment on Park Avenue. So I can afford it, but I have no space for it. Or what I heard was, I got plenty of space. I live in Wisconsin or I live in Minnesota. I've got a big, beautiful house with a basement. I've got plenty of room, but I'm a little tight on funds now, and I really can't afford the $4,000 or $5,000 that it may cost to get a wooden sauna. And so I put my thinking cap on, and I thought, well, we need to make something that is more affordable and can fit or is in a portable format, can fold up. And that really was the genesis of the shift. So we still make wooden ones, but our real main focus and what has taken the market by storm has been this portable format, because it's more affordable and also it can fold up and easy to move around.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more to it than that, because it's not just those two aspects. In my opinion, it's probably the most therapeutic type of sauna in the infrared spectrum of saunas that you can buy now. And there's a few reasons. And it kind of doves into the second part of what you were asking, which is, what are some of the rudimentary aspects of our technology? Well, one is that we capture full spectrum infrared. And so what that means for people that don't know, the sun delivers an array of sun rays and frequencies basically all day into the earth. The infrared spectrum is just one segment of that, but it is considered the most beneficial frequencies of all sun energy. There are 3 wavelengths: the near, middle, and far. And so for all the viewers out there that are looking or Googling, let's say, or searching infrared or infrared saunas, they're going to hear about near infrared saunas and far infrared saunas. The approach that we took is more natural, meaning that the way nature delivers those frequencies to the planet every day are in a full spectrum, all 3 wavelengths. So it's not near versus far, one better than the other. Our bodies can benefit from all 3 wavelengths. It's just a question of where are the deficiencies in our bodies, and that usually is the way nature kind of fills in all the holes and cracks and so forth, So what's unusual about our approach is we're one of the only, the few that are full spectrum of all the infrared saunas out there, and we're one of the only ones that are in the portable format that are full spectrum. So that's a key feature.
That's a big point, by the way.
Yeah, well, all we're doing is following what I consider one of the best playbooks out there, which is the nature, right?
Right.
Nature and the Bible are probably the 2 longest running playbooks that we've got. And so, if you just kind of listen, I follow nature in terms of the other integrations that we do. Some of the other features that we're known for is that we remediate electromagnetic fields. So those are the exogenous frequencies that are man-made, like 5G networks, 3G networks, Bluetooth, everything, wireless, RF phones, all that stuff is great technology and amazing. We,
Sorry for the backdrop. That's a watch party going on.
Okay, cool. So all of those are really great and convenient, and we've, especially in the more modern cities and cosmopolitan areas, urban areas, we've come to really become somewhat dependent on the ease of use of all that technology. But what are the health aspects and how does it affect us?
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of theories behind, like this COVID-19, that it might have been stimulated by the 5G, the turning on of the 5G networks. Not to dive too deeply into that today, but the approach that we took, and it really came from me about 14 years ago. I had a little dream, and in the dream, I was challenging myself, because basically, anything that plugs into a wall socket or is driven by a battery will generate these electronic fields, the electromagnetic fields. And so, how do I reconcile delivering this amazing portable sauna that's harnessing full spectrum infrared frequencies that plugs into a wall, all knowing that the body is going to be conflicted with what should it and how does the body reconcile balancing the exogenous frequencies that it wants to defend itself against, right? Hold off against, and receive all the beautiful frequencies of natural sunlight. I didn't really know the answer, Wade, honestly. Then I didn't know the answer. But what I did think was, if I could figure out a way to get the EMF equation off the table, then I would be delivering a device that really harnesses sun energy in a fashion the way nature delivers it to the planet, and all the entire plant and animal kingdom, all life on the planet as we know it, needs these frequencies in order to be healthy.
So can I break that down real quick for listeners?
Yeah. Okay.
Just to kind of recap how important that little piece is. When we talk about EMS, we're talking about electromagnetic frequencies. For those of you who wonder what that really feels like, looks like, sounds like, in Madison, Wisconsin, you can drive under this new high line that is literally right along our belt line that surrounds the Madison area, in terms of, and basically goes right down to around town. That gets people as the main artery. The problem is you stop next to that and you can hear the crackling. Those are EMFs. That is frequency that you can't see. However, you can feel, and they have an effect on the body as a force that your body has to adapt to. So what Robby is sharing is that, how do you add beautiful frequencies to the body, knowing that there's this electromagnetic frequency that can be equally as disruptive? And so that's how he's diffused to keep this very positive EMFs in the body, which is one main feature that I found crucial as I researched and went deep into what saunas are going to be beneficial. For example, if I buy this sauna on the market that has this great feature of strong near infrared, and yet is not EMF proof to diffuse negative EMFs, what did I just do? I just traded one for the other. Therefore, I'm really not getting what I think I'm getting, even though I'm going through the motions. So thank you, Robby, for bringing that up, for actually developing the technology and being aware of it, because again, that isn't a mainstream thought process. So hopefully that just kind of gave listeners a little distinction as to why this is, I think, a superior mode. And you have the floor again, my man.
Thanks. Well, I'm sitting in a different spot than most people, because aside from that serial entrepreneurial piece that you highlighted earlier, and I suffer from that same challenge, I'm the pioneer. I'm the developer. I'm not taking a device, slapping a label on it that's made by somebody else, and basically selling it at trade shows or however. we're developing our technology, and it's an evolutionary process, a cathartic process. The unit that we're selling today, called the Thera 360 Plus and a regular Thera 360, is probably the most advanced infrared sauna on the planet. And I'm saying this from a humble place because I know my space,
Yeah.
and so I have the ability to research. I have the ability to be able to notice a shift in our physiology and our health state, research technology, and incorporate that into our format so that people can actually benefit from it. And I can do it fairly efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know any other competitors in my area that actually has that, can do that. And I do it, and I say it humbly, because my quest is to try to make an affordable technology that people can use every day in their homes, and not to be instead of anything else, but just to enable people, empower people, really, to take more responsibility for their health care. And what I'm doing in the other pillars of my technology is essentially dialing us back a little bit, bringing in different natural energies and resources that we seem to, in all of our busy lifestyles and the things that were our current mode, we seem to be getting a little bit away from. And so, for instance, the EMF part is certainly very important. And to me was a big game changer. I didn't have the foresight 14 plus years ago to think that where we were going is where we are today in terms of 5Gs and the proliferation of the cell phone industry and all the wireless devices out there. Wasn't thinking on that level. I was thinking more about how do these frequencies influence our body. And each of our cells in our body weight are like little batteries, and they've got a positive and a negative charge. And so these other frequencies that are invisible, just like infrared is invisible. So if you can't see it, taste it, hear it, or smell it, that's, let's say, either infrared or an EMF. And just like you pointed out, you go through the highway and you hear it and you're going, wow, what is that sound? It sounds sort of like a bug, one of those bug
bug zappers.
A bug zapper, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you can't recognize it with your senses, does it really exist? And the truth is that you have to actually dive a little deeper. Like, blood studies are showing us that this technology, this EMF technology and so forth, it does affect our blood. It does affect our cells. And there are some pretty simple, inexpensive solutions, but it starts from having a need to understanding that there's a problem that's existing is the first thing, right? And then after that, try to think a little bit out of the box, which is really where I am, about not the conventional ways to fix things, but some of the other non-conventional, more natural ways to fix things, and then try to put that in a format that is affordable and easy for people to use and incorporate into their lives. And so that's kind of part of like the underpinnings.
Right.
I've discovered about 8 or 9 years ago that there are certain earth elements that actually generate frequencies within themselves. And a great way for people to understand that is everybody knows about radioactive stones, right? And so if you took a Geiger counter and you put the Geiger counter up to a radioactive stone, it would start beep, 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 right? But you can't see that radioactivity, but you have this little device that actually shows you. So that stone that's not plugged into the wall, right, is generating an energy within itself. It's called piezoelectric, is what that energy is called. And so what we discovered within a dozen years ago is that there are many other stones or earth elements that do the same thing. And I travel around the world and I find the best sources of these stones, and we grind them up into fine powder and we infuse them in our materials. And in the infrared sauna, for instance, if you touch the inner panels, you'll notice there are bumps, and that has natural tourmaline stone that comes from a very unique area of the world where people, still call it a longevity town, where people live the longest. And the reason why we source the stones there is because it generates a high amount of negative ion. And negative ion is basically like an earthing effect, or like a, it's like a, yeah, it's an earthing effect that brings the earth charge into the body and balances your body battery out. Okay. And so when the synergy or the combined effect of natural sunlight and earth energy together, again, these are primal things that we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
it really makes a big difference in the way the body responds in creating a healing platform. And so from some of the smartest doctors I know, and I'm in a very fortunate position because as a humble leader in my little area, and as energy medicine is becoming more prominent among mainstream practitioners and by the integrated functional doctors, I'm able to interact with many of these practitioners, teach them about my technology. They incorporate it in their clinics and in their hospitals and in their practices. And then we cooperate with protocols. So, as I said earlier, it's not just good enough to make a device. How do we use the device to get the benefit that we're looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And so we like to think that we're different, not just because we're innovative and try to continually raise the bar on the things that we're doing, but also on the health science integration, applying that device to get the best result. And that's kind of what I do.
It's awesome. No, that's cool. I see you can go a number of directions here. So um, for today, we're right about 30-ish minutes here into this. So what we could do, I put down the first pillar like you had mentioned, and there may not be a specific order that you wanted to go to, and maybe there is, but I labeled that as basically full spectrum infrared, the near, middle, and far, which yours entails. We could go into a couple other pillars, or we could save that for next episode, unless you want to just um, allude to what those are, and we can dive deeper.
Well, let me quickly mention them now, okay? So one is full spectrum infrared. The second would be that we remediate all electromagnetic fields. Soon, people will start to understand that there are other frequencies like extreme low fields, electronic fields, which is named dirty electricity, that's also going to become important. We have just created a way to remediate that. And so we remediate for basically all exogenous frequencies. We use natural gemstones in all of our technology. I just mentioned tourmaline is one, but we can dive into that later on at a future time. And we also use electronic grounding. So we electronically ground. It's like a big earthing mat when you're inside that sauna. So basically, those are the four main pillars of our technology that we do in both the infrared sauna, and we have another device that we call a healing pad. And so where the sauna is more like a floodlight, meaning that you're just bathing in these frequencies, the healing pad series is like a spotlight where you can bring that heating pad right to an area of your body that you're looking to give special attention to and heal.
Cool. That's very cool. There's a couple upgrades that I'm going to get for my unit too, which is awesome. That I spoke with Melody about. By the way, I just wrote, and I may be incorrect, that's why I'm asking, is number 2 would be remediating all negative EMFs or dirty electricity. And number 3, earthing stones for grounding. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, earthing stones, correct.
And then 4th would be eliminating what?
Well, we generate negative ions. So
Generating.
negative
Okay, cool.
ions comes from the gemstones and also from the we electrically ground all of our devices so that we're bringing earth charge or an earthing effect into our technology.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So anything else you wanna wrap up with? Any parting thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me and on the show. And then, I know it's strange and unusual times for all of us, and most of us are out of our comfort zones. But maybe it was just I was always a half full type guy, and when you look at the glass, so I'm always looking for that silver lining. And if there's any silver lining from this situation and coming out of the other end of the corona tunnel that we're all in now, is to learn the lessons. Like, we have a hard reset going on now. We have an opportunity to look at the way we lived before and adjust and understand that there are certain things that we simply forgot about, simple primal things that we forgot about, that we can bring back into our lives and slow things down a little bit. I mean, I'm not asking people to throw out their cell phones by any means, but there are ways to remediate the cell phone so that it's not going to hurt you and your family. Today we talked about sauna, a little bit of my technology, but when I go into my sauna every day, Wade, I'm not thinking I'm trying to get myself well. I look at that sauna, it represents love, it represents gratefulness. I go in there and I meditate. It gives me an opportunity to commune within myself. And so it's a full healing, both spiritual, emotional, and physical, to me. And my hopes are to educate and bring people's awareness to this for the individual, let's say the adult, but for them to also teach this same type of lifestyle choice to their children. And so that we grow up as a culture. I mean, take a look at it. Some of the most healthy cultures in the world are like the people from Holland and Finland, and they've been doing saunas everyone has a sauna in their household. This isn't new to them. It's part of their psychology. It's not about getting well. It's about it being important in order to be well and live healthy. And that's where I'm hoping to drive people's consciousness with the technology that we're using, because we're making it affordable, we're making it portable, we're making it easy for people to get in and to really see a change. And I'm not talking about a change that takes 6, 8, 10 months. You know, you articulated earlier that within a short time you saw a big difference in your own change. But I'm talking about something happening within weeks. And it's pretty exciting. I'm happy that I'm here today. I'm sorry for the reasons in terms of Corona, but I am happy that people, I believe, are having the time now to really kind of think things through a little bit, and hopefully we'll glean a few of the points that we touched today, grab some of them, make a change in their life. The time to do it is now, and then come out a better person, a healthier person from all this.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree, and those are great words. It's the unrealistic time where we have a chance to wake up and we have a chance to do things different. We have a chance to support our health differently than we have before as a wake-up call, or we can choose to continue to think and be misled that someone else, like the government, is actually going to care for us along those lines. So thank you so much for your time today, Robby. My pleasure having you. And I did drop our code in there so people can find, and I'll also have your information where people can find you, Therasage360.com.
Great.
Correct. And some information on you and your story is there as well. But I thank you for your time, your energy involved in this, and the fact that I believe in the product because I've researched it. I've dug. I've looked into it. I'm conscious about what I do with EMFs, how we live our life. It's a process of lifestyle for me. So now I just get into that thing minimum 1 day a week, if not 2 days is what my goal is right now on a supportive level. I could be in that thing easily, 20 to 30 minutes a day with no problem enjoying it. It's easy because I can still read while I'm doing it, which was great. I read and read and read. And so I'm able to continue. And I think I'm going to shift gears and make it a little more of a spiritual exercise too for me right now. But that said, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to having you again, and we could dive deeper into some of this where people might want more information from a science level too, which again, we didn't want to hit them over the head with that today. So
yeah, next time too, if we remember, I want to talk about some of the other technologies like ozone and essential oils that we stack in the sauna experience to even dial it up more. So there are some very interesting things. Again, we're just harnessing nature in one way or another. But we have noticed that when you add certain things together, like 1 and 1 makes 4 and not 2.
Right. Very well said. I love that. In fact, let's count on it. We'll discuss an upcoming episode pretty quick here because I think it's not only important we do that. It's valuable right now for people to exercise this and take advantage of timing. So let's do that. That sounds great.
That's great. Thanks again.
Yep. Hang on with me.